Faster Myers, Raina, Sarah. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you once again for joining us for this media briefing. So if I may, I'd like to share with you the latest statistics from our very hard working and dedicated professionals at DHSC. Since the last update yesterday, there have been no confirmed positive tests for coronaviruses on the Isle of Man. There have also been no further confirmed deaths from coronavirus. The total number of confirmed cases of coronavirus on the Isle of Man remains at 308. The number of deaths in the community remains at 13 and hospital deaths remain at 5. In total, 268 patients have been instructed to self-isolate and 22 are being treated in the hospital. There have been 2,750 concluded tests. This is an increase of 35 since 4 p.m. update yesterday. 46 people are awaiting results and 59 people are awaiting tests. The number of individuals who are presumed recovered from the virus is at least 243. To everyone who is at Noble's Hospital or recovering from home, I wish you all a very speedy recovery. I have a guest with me today, and it's Brian Butler, who is the Chair of Construction Isle of Man, and I'm going to give Brian an opportunity to talk a little bit about what happened yesterday. But first of all, what I'd like you to do is actually cast your mind back to 2008. 2008 is when we, as the Department for Enterprise, started the journey of promoting Locate Isle of Man. We created a little video for that, and it said 10 rules for better work-life balance. Not many people actually watched it, so it's well worth a revisit. Why? Because I watched it this morning and I was trying to consider how that applies to how life and work is here on the Isle of Man today. Number 1 rule, let go of perfection. And on that basis, from a government perspective, I want to thank you for your patience, because we have brought in measures to help businesses and workers through this time, and we haven't got it perfected. We are making changes, and I know there are some that still haven't got the support, and I apologise for them, but do bear with us. Do be patient, because we are continuing to work 7 days a week to resolve that, to give you the support. Number 2, it's all about the journey. Millennials talk a lot about that, don't they? It's all about the commute, the work-life balance. Number 3, it says work smarter, not harder. Well, we're already doing that. You can see this here, especially with our media professionals, all working from home. Our own department are all working from home. And you, many of you in the private sector, third sector, are all working from home. And if you're not, you're exercising social distance. So you are working smarter. Don't skip lunch. Very important, as is breakfast and your tea. But what we want you to do is to think local. Buy local, eat local. Spend more time in nature. That's what we did yesterday. Give you that opportunity to spend more time in our nature. Limit time-wasting activities. Goes without saying, but more important today as we prioritise. And pace yourself. That's a message I want to say particularly to all the hard-working people across the piece of government, because they are working throughout the week, 7 days a week, exceptional hours. But I know you too are actually doing that in the private sector and also the third sector, which we must not forget the very valuable work that they do as well. This is a really important one, number 8. Unplug. Embrace the switch off position. I want you to really think about that one because of mental health issues. Number 9, which is right in our space for the Department for Enterprise, jump into new opportunities. We have already begun the early stage planning as to what that new economy will be for the future. We will be meeting with our colleagues across government, especially with Treasury, to look at those new opportunities. They are already being created. They are already being capitalised on, and we will be working more towards that future. And last but not least, understand what really matters. Life matters, which is why you have done an exceptional job to get to this particular point. So a big change yesterday occurred, and whilst this is a phased approach, it is a very sensible approach, and it's been done in such a fashion that we put significant guidelines in place to ensure that your safety and the island's safety is maintained. So with that, I'd like to introduce Brian Butler, who's the chair of Isle of Man Construction, to give you his take on where we are today. Over to you, Brian.
Thank you, Minister. Good afternoon. Construction Isle of Man is an amalgamation of the Isle of Man construction industry bodies launched in January 2020 with the assistance of Business Isle of Man, an agency of the Department of Enterprise. The remit of developing a strategy to improve quality standards in design and construction, formalise arrangements in relation to health and safety and quality standards, skills development, introduce organised initiatives to further promote and develop the sector, and become a single point of contact for government departments, the public and industry. Construction influences every aspect of the environment we learn, work and live in. COVID-19 has provided a very unwelcome opportunity to show that we can work together in extremely challenging circumstances. We are in no doubt that this will not be an easy task, but believe that we have the right people in place across the industry to be instrumental in returning the industry to work in a safe manner. The current situation is an opportunity to work on major schemes with reduced impact on businesses and the public in general. Construction is a major contributor to the economic well-being of the Isle of Man, and although our return to work is not economically driven, the return to work will benefit the Isle of Man significantly and reduce the future burden on the taxpayer. Following a request from the Isle of Man Government, Construction Isle of Man has worked with the Department of Enterprise to consider how a safe return to work could be achieved. It is important to remember that the construction industry in other jurisdictions has not stopped during this pandemic, and other sectors of the Isle of Man economy, such as transport, retail, manufacturing, and the health and social care sectors, have continued to work during this period. Construction Isle of Man wrote a policy document which the Isle of Man Government and Public Health agreed the industry could have the policies and procedure in place to allow a safe return to work. The Isle of Man Government has provided guidance in respect of how construction can return to work safely, and the construction industry is committed to complying fully with these guidelines. For a long number of years, the construction industry has been a risk-managed industry. By that, I mean that all aspects of construction, from design to completion, are subject to risk assessments, which are an examination of a task for the purpose of identifying risks and what control measures must be taken to reduce that risk to an acceptable level. COVID-19 is another risk to consider, and Construction Isle of Man has prepared sample risk assessments which are available on the Isle of Man Employers Federation website to assist the industry in understanding the risks of COVID-19 and provides examples of what measures could be put in place to eliminate as much as possible the risk of catching and spreading the virus. The sample risk assessments are available to everyone. However, it is the responsibility of each individual or organisation to assess their own risk and put in place controls and measures to eliminate that risk. The risk assessments reflect the current government guidelines and must be reviewed and updated with any changes to these guidelines. Construction Isle of Man certainly do not want ourselves, our colleagues, our staff, our families, subcontractors, customers, or the general public to be negatively impacted by our return to work. The health and safety of the population is our primary, ultimate priority. However, we believe the work we have undertaken provides an opportunity for the construction industry to return to work safely. We understand that not everyone will wish to return to work. Those with underlying health conditions or living with people in the vulnerable category may deem a return to work too risky. We understand this, and as the Chief Minister said, nobody will be forced to return to work. Treasury has put in place funding and support packages to assist those who cannot return to work, and our understanding is that these packages will still be available. If anyone has concerns about the arrangements for return to work, then they should discuss this with their manager in the first instance and the Health and Safety at Work Inspectorate. Finally, please remember that the Isle of Man construction industry is here to serve you. For the majority, we wish to work and we wish to work safely. You, as customers, have a role to play by continuing to support us. But please appreciate we are working under strict guidelines and method statements. Before entering a property, you may be asked some questions and trades may feel that it's not safe to enter or request you to leave a working area. Please bear with us and allow us to work safely for your and our own sakes. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I hope that's a very helpful overview from the construction industry. Now I'd like to turn to questions, and first up we have Sean from Manx Radio. First of mine.
Mastermind Minister, a question for yourself, first of all. You picked up there on the locate strategy, all about growing the economically active population, bringing people to the island. Well, we had an interview this week with a couple of landlords on the island who, one of them in particular, expressed concern that if we don't protect the hospitality industry, we're not going to keep young people on the island. Is that something you share? Are you concerned about that as well? And if so, what measures are you going to put in place to protect that industry?
Yes, thank you, Sean. It's yes, I did hear that actually, and it actually rings true with some of the feedback that we're getting with regards to those who are actually working from home. It's only anecdotal at this particular moment. However, we've noted that the younger generation are not the ones that don't wish to continue to work from home because they want more social interaction, and so the vibrancy of our hospitality industry is really important for the island. And I think it's worth noting when we talk about hospitality and tourism, because of course that's under the spotlight too, because of the difficulty with regards to border closures, airline collapses, and confidence in people actually travelling. What does that mean for the future? What we do need to do is to ensure we have that, because it is part of our work-life balance, is the hospitality. Really important aspect. Whilst the numbers are not huge in terms of GDP, the actual value within our economy, I guess our well-being, is much stronger. So I do believe we need to consider further support for this industry as we look to strategize and put more resource behind understanding what kind of hospitality we can introduce at what time, and that obviously goes hand in hand with the work that we're doing obviously with the medics, ensuring that we are managing to suppress and contain this virus.
Thank you. And my second question for Mr. Butler, please.
Hi, Sean.
Hi. So you spoke there about the safe return to work and the policy that's been put in place with government. What is actually happening on building sites? What are these practical measures that you're doing to keep both the construction workers and the public safe?
Practically, the major item is we are self-distancing as much as we possibly can. We have staggered entering into the site. We have staggered brew time. We have staggered lunches. We are washing our hands. We provided much more washing facilities. The public health's recommendation that you wash your hands with soap and water, therefore the majority of sites are improving and increasing the amount of wash stations that they have. If there isn't wash statements, stages, there is sanitizer being provided to all the construction workers.
You're reminded. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. If we can now move on to Rob at 3FM. First of all, Rob.
First of all, Minister. First of all, I just wanted to ask you about the strategic capacity scheme. So far, you've set aside an initial £2.4 million for the scheme. Given the feedback that you've been getting over the last few weeks about how much longer the impact could be on the tourism accommodation sector as a whole, do you still feel that that figure financially is enough, or could this be reviewed?
Thank you, Rob. Yes, I would suggest it could be reviewed, and it goes hand in hand with hospitality, and that's why we've recognised, I think, the value of it, and it's probably been undervalued in the past, I guess, going back to the previous question there. And what's coming out, I think, is the importance that our local produce, for example, and we have some fantastic stories, and we've seen a proliferation of the Isle of Man becoming a foodie destination, a foodie and drink destination. And something I think we as locals actually really enjoy and appreciate. And we've got a real challenge on our hands, because if tourism doesn't bounce back, like it may not, that's what 300,000 visitors that normally come to our island and spend on our island. We locals may not be going away so much on holiday. We've got to make sure that we support those venues as well at the same time. But there are clearly challenges whilst we're in this space of social distancing. Many have have adapted very quickly to the click and collect or delivery services, which has been going in great success across the island, and we hope more of that can continue. So yes, very much conscious that the support that we have got may require further, depending on how long they need support before they can return to reasonable levels of viability.
Thank you very much. And my second question is for Mr. Butler, please.
Hi, Rob.
Hi there, good to see you. Just from your perspective, given the fact that construction's been allowed to return, you say it could be a chance to progress major schemes, but with the fact that other industries are still facing slightly tighter restrictions around a lot of things, how is this going to affect getting supplies into sites? I'm talking the likes of our building materials and machinery to help these progress at the right rate.
The building materials, the suppliers are open. In the UK, suppliers are open. So there may be delays in getting materials to site, but generally we're hopeful that we can actually get materials to site without any problems. Machinery is the same. Machinery is a fairly easy one. It's one guy in a low loader. Social distancing is quite easy for people like that. So we don't see any major problems in those items.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. And if we can move on to Paul. Paul, pass the mic to you.
Hello, Mr. Skelly. The construction industry, by the very nature, has been made up of a lot of people, not just based on the Isle of Man, but people who come into work. And did those people go away? So what is the breakdown, first of all? And then how do you get them back here? Are they deemed key workers, or do they have to go through immigration and join the queue of other people coming in on a Wednesday?
Yeah, good point, really, Paul, because the skills that we don't always have here. And Brian will tell you that the construction industry has been telling us for many years we've been losing a lot of our skills over a number of years. What I do know is that we prior to the coronavirus, our construction industry was enjoying a bit of a resurgence, which was really positive. So I hope we have sufficient skills to do what we need to do in the short term. But I think we have to recognise in the medium term that we may need to bring skills in, and then that will answer questions as to where they would house. Could they be housed in a hotel, for example, for a period of time under quarantine? Just go to work, stay in a hotel. These are questions to come later, I would suggest. But at this moment in time, we're really keen to focus in on our local construction industry to see what they can do under the current guidelines of social distancing and obviously no gatherings too, which I think Brian has explained quite clearly there.
Right, and for Brian, you talked about health and safety. I didn't hear face masks, I might have missed it, but clearly when people are being picked up in the van in the morning, that it is allowed to people can be in that van if it's clean. But it was certainly, we've had some correspondence, people are quite worried about that idea. Do you have an opinion about face masks and also this business about sharing a space inside a cab?
Well, the sharing the space inside the cab, I'll deal with first, because the rules are, or the guidelines are, that you try your best not to. That you know, kind of, if you have to, then you should try to sit behind and not beside. The face mask, unfortunately, I don't know enough about it. I'm not a health professional. There are certain contractors who have got face masks and who've got plastic covers over to go over helmets and things like that. It all comes down to risk assessment and whether there is a requirement for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. If we move on to Amanda, Jeff the Mongoose. That's the Amanda.
Hi, Minister. Thank you very much. We've spoken previously about not allowing people to slip through the cracks when it comes to the government's schemes to help businesses survive. Those blocked from cessation schemes currently include over 65s who cannot apply for the Mirror or salary support scheme, and entrepreneurs with several businesses who can only apply for one. Will we be seeing updates to eligibility soon?
Yes. The simple answer to that is yes. First of all, I'd like to say that we've got through the vast majority of those applications, and it required a tremendous amount of work from a team, quite a large team that we had working 7 days a week, which they continue through this weekend here. But they had to deal with duplications and qualifying to ensure that they're applying for the right scheme. So the vast majority have been processed or have been paid. There are a few areas that are still problematic, and we are trying to work through them. Myself and also Treasury Minister have made very clear statements that we are going to get the support to those people who are affected. So, and we do recognise, and I think you mentioned there I think the age issue there with regards to, I guess, what might be equality factors that need to come into play. So we are aware of that, and we are working on those last few, and they are just the last few. And once more, I apologise to those who haven't got paid yet, and do bear with us, please. Amanda, did you have a second question, Amanda?
Yes. We have a strong financial sector. Is the government engaging with economic experts to develop a long-term view of our economy? And are there plans for modelling of the worst, expected and best case scenarios, much as we have seen with the coronavirus case curves?
Yeah, no, very, very good point. Really, the finance sector, one of the first industries, to adapt to this new environment, working from home, and they did it to very good effect. As did the digital, their engineering, and one or two other industries. And it's important to recognize, if I may, just actually recognise those industries, because those industries are the industries that are creating and paying the tax. That is really important. So, of course, now we've got another sector that's returning to work that will actually contribute to the economic welfare of the Isle of Man. And but it's not just about the economic welfare, which is important, because without taxes and an economy, we don't really have a health service and a government to be able to deliver those very, very important services for the public that we serve. But I also want to highlight the well-being issue about people working, because in this sort of hard lockdown environment, you've heard Chief Constable say there's been such a spike with regards to domestic abuse and mental health issues, and I know firsthand that is causing a lot of issues, and will put another strain on our health department if we don't start to address these points. But going back to your point about the finance, yes, they are looking at new opportunities, and just yesterday we had a department meeting that actually demonstrated one or two potential opportunities, of which I wouldn't actually want to tell you what they are. Why? Because we think we can steal a market advantage, and that's where I think we can be strong, we can be powerful with regards to bouncing back in terms of our economy.
And sorry, just to clarify there, can we expect some sort of modelling to be made public for us all to understand? Yes,
I think you're talking about a more firmer strategy. Where product development is what I was alluding to there. But yes, we will be issuing some form of a strategy in due course, and that will be bringing all the sectors together through the agency model. Excellent. Could I now move on to Jackie? Mastermind Jackie at Isle of Man Newspapers.
Good afternoon, Minister.
How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Great, thanks.
Good. My first question is for you. There's talk in the UK of allowing people to meet up with a small number of family and friends. Is that something that the Council of Ministers is currently considering?
Thank you, Jackie. Not currently, because this is all about taking a phase-stepped approach. What we want to do is, and this is why the statistics are so important that we highlight every single day to see the trend. We made obviously very big commitments with regards to the testing facilities, the tracing capabilities, and you're seeing this containment actually happening, every day. So what we have to do is allow a certain period of time, and we're advised it's about an 8-day period, so really about a 2-week window, of which we would need to address another phased approach if, and I say a huge if, that the medical profession tell us that this is right and this is appropriate. But follow that trend, because that trend and that curve, which you hear a lot about, is all about that dampening and flattening that curve. And as that continues, there clearly would be more things we can do. But what we've tried to do is be in a very orderly fashion and in conjunction with what our medics are telling us.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is for you, Brian. How much construction work do you think can realistically be carried out under the current restrictions? And what concerns and issues do you think there are among companies and workers about the safe return?
I think the majority of people can go back to work. The amount that can be done, there is certainly going to be some areas of work that can't be done. There are some sites that involve going into people's houses. It's probably not going to be easy. There are some people who are not going to want construction trades coming into their houses. I would hope that the majority of people, as long as they stick with the guidelines and as long as they have good method statements and they comply with them, can go back to work. I don't really see any major issues in it.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Jackie. If you want to raise your hand, if you want to have a second question. Sean first, Max Radio.
Thank you. Minister, this week, it's kind of picking up on Amanda's point about the economy, actually. This week, Keys and Legco backed some changes to the Loans Act that mean Treasury now can borrow up to 50 million without having to go to Tynwald for a vote. Making that money back is kind of going to fall on your department. Are you concerned by those powers? And is the economy actually strong enough to be building up that kind of debt?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, there is a clear challenge there for us as a department and I think in Ireland. But that move, and I fully support that move. Why? Because it's actually more of an enabling power and it's about adding to the arsenal that's needed to actually bounce back. So as we gradually return to some form of normality in a very phased approach, we will see sectors like the construction and horticulture go back and then start to contribute to our economy, which is really vital and important. So it's all a matter of when and how and what mechanisms. And those questions earlier about other sectors are going to need continued support. So the more sectors that come back to contribute means that we can focus on those ones that do need those support. So all that is in my mind, is actually about adding to the arsenal of measures that we do have available to support our economy.
But is the economy strong enough if there is more borrowing?
Well, it's never been cheaper in terms of actually gaining borrowings. You know, we're as a nation, we're in a very different position than other countries with regards to issuing currency and so forth. So we have to use what is available for us in terms of the strength of our economy. Prior to COVID, we were moving absolutely in the right direction, had been for a number of years. There was a buoyancy, there was a confidence, there was investment, there was employment at the highest level, which is why locate, which is where it started here, was so important. We had more jobs than we had people. So we were at a good position at that time, but we're no different than any other nation that's going to have to try and rebuild their economy to actually support the public services that we all expect and demand. So we've shown, and I think this comes back to resilience actually, I'm sorry to labour this, but this comes back to the resilience of the Isle of Man and the economy of the Isle of Man, and we've demonstrated that we have and been able to do so in the past, and I have confidence that we will be able to do so in the future.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Sean. Over to you, Paul. Thank you.
I think I asked you this, Laurence, a couple of weeks ago about how many key workers have actually come into the island. Have you got that number now? And what sort of precautions are you putting in place? Are they staying in one hotel? Are they ferried back and forth? You know, can you answer that now?
I don't have a number, Paul, of key workers, but clearly there are quite a few, because what you have to think about is not just the health workers, but all the other frontline services, critical infrastructure that might need some sort of specialist servicing, power station and various other facilities that we may have. So I don't think there will be large numbers, but that was why it was important that we maintain the travel links going to and fro the island.
I was going to ask you that because obviously this Heathrow service, is that what that is for, those key workers to come in and out of?
It's that opportunity for them to use that facility, because clearly the steam packet is used for other services, particularly for freight and obviously repatriation, which is going on as well. And I see, Jackie, you have another question. Jackie.
Yes, I do.
Aided by Adrian. I spotted him.
Guernsey has allowed estate agents to return to work. Is that something that's being considered here?
Yeah, thank you for that, Jackie. Yes, I did spot that. A local estate agent pointed that out to me just yesterday. Like everything, we will take things in a phased approach. So we will monitor, and that's what I would believe that we've done this in the right way, whereas we look to see what happens elsewhere. And industry's been really good to actually share that information with us, so as we can analyse that to understand, is this going to work for us here on the Isle of Man? But I go back to that data, because the data is absolutely vital. Every day when we come here and share that with you, that tells you, are we going in the right direction? And the trend says, yes, we are. We are suppressing it. We are containing it. So we can look at another measure. And we must think that if we do things too quick, too fast, the public will get even more confused. And I understand it can be confusing from time to time, but what we want them to do is to be very reasonable and use common sense and call us if you have a query or question. The access, the call volumes, I'm glad to say, have been going down, not just the 111 but other numbers as well at the same time. So feel free to make contact with us if you do have a query. Amanda, back to the Dalby Spook.
Thank you, Minister. Just to build on what Jackie said there, with the news of construction and horticulture going back to work, it's been met with both joy and anxiety. I know it's been asked before, and that it's hugely dependent on coronavirus cases in the coming days, but can you indicate which sectors are next in line to go back to work if all does go well in the coming weeks?
Thank you, Amanda. I can't say at this moment in time, but we are liaising, as we do with all sectors, to be quite frank, to understand what their issues are and how they can actually exercise it. The beauty with construction was that there were a number of jurisdictions that continued to operate, so we could look at their guidelines and how they operate to adapt it to the Isle of Man, to Manxify it, as we always say. So I would just say that we have been talking with a lot of industries, and we continue to do so. And what we look to do is to, again, I just re-emphasize that the phased approach. Let us get more data as we analyze how that industry can come back safely at the end of the day, because at the end of that's what we want to do as a government, and you, the public, want us to be responsible as much as we possibly can. Rob, you have another question, Rob?
Very much. Just touching on the point there you mentioned about collecting data to see how things are running, to obviously plan ahead. From the health perspective, we heard from Mr. Wright and, of course, the Health Minister yesterday about it takes, I believe what they said was around 8 to 10 days to get data for cases. From a different side, from the DFE perspective and with business, how many days does it take for yourselves in the DFE to get the right data to see if things are going in the right direction or not?
Thank you, Rob. Good question. And I don't have a definitive answer as to how many days, but what I would say is there is constant monitoring that will be going on. And what we try to do is, if you think back, it was over a week ago when Minister Cannon actually signalled this potential change. And the idea of that was in order to prepare and understand, how that might actually happen. So we are liaising with the industries, going back to Amanda's point, which other sectors would need to we would look at. Let's see if we can be successful with this one. Can we be responsible? Can we demonstrate that we can change? And I come back to that word change again. It is constant. There's no doubt about it. But what is very clear to me, and I think everyone, is that it's the new normal. Please, 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 you must exercise that social distance. And if you have to go out, clearly staying at home is the best way of keeping it safe. But if you do go out, and you do have some opportunities to do that now for work and further exercise and exploration of the Isle of Man, exercise that social distancing and no gatherings, please. So it's still you or your household as one there. So that's the last message I'd like to leave at that point there. Great. Well, thank you very much for all your questions, and thank you, Brian. I appreciate you coming out today to present and address the nation here today. So, if I may, I'd like to finish with the Howard's Heroes shout-outs, if I may. So many of you will have seen and heard the news earlier this week about the moorland blaze in Greba. The Isle of Man Fire and Rescue Service and colleagues from the Department of Environment, Food and Agriculture were quickly on the scene and brought the fire under control after a 4-hour battle. The fire was widespread over 4 acres and required 3 major appliances, 2 off-road appliances, a water bowser, a DEFRA tractor and cutter, and a total of 30 firefighters and 3 DEFRA officers. It is a reminder of just how many essential public services we continue to function under these restrictions. I'd just like to say well done to everyone involved with that. We've also received a nomination in for, and I quote, the fantastic Cleona McMahon. Cleona is the manager of the Next Step training unit, part of the mental health service. Cleona and her team are managing over 100 clients from home, and she also volunteers at the food bank in her own time. Well done, and thank you, Cleona, and the whole team at Next Step. The final shout out today is for the Manx Credit Union. They have maintained operations online with volunteers working from home throughout the lockdown. A valuable service to many. Guramaid. So, Mananan, Sondabrack, Isle of Man forever, Tani, Sushi, stay safe. Guramaid.